Hey,
Josh Peck.
hey, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good, my friend. Welcome to the Edge Television broadcast.
It's great to be talking with you again. It's been a little while.
All right. Well, you probably see me with a green screen, but that's not really what's in the background. Your happy face and some various things are going to be back there. Josh, welcome back to the show, man. It's good to have you.
Oh, it's good to talk to you again. It's good to be back, and yeah, this is exciting.
Hey, man, how's the new baby?
Oh, he's great. He is awesome. He's actually already lifting his head up, which is crazy. Like right after he was born, he started doing that. I guess it's a little more common than I thought, but I didn't think newborns could even do that. But yeah, he's happy, healthy, strong, and Christina's doing great too.
Okay. Well, and we've actually got you and Christina, and I'm trying to get you to see if you want to do the very first internet, at least a question. To Adam, so that he can be acclimated to the world that you inhabit, which is basically the internet world.
Yeah, sounds good.
So we'll see what I mean. Is he prepared to answer whether or not aliens exist and such, or do?
Well, he has me as a dad, so he's prepared.
Well, if he's as prepared as you, I expect a good show there. Well, all right, now we're going to be talking about. Some new material that you've been developing with some other guests. But before we do that, I want to talk. From time to time, we do talk about health issues on the program, and there's a certain I don't know what to describe it. Is it a herb that you've taken that has really helped you? Walk us through what condition you had and what that herb does. Let's talk about that for a sec.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to say first, thank you so much for having me on to talk about this. It's such an important issue, and there's not a lot of time before something really bad might happen. We basically have a couple of weeks to do something. But basically, I personally I suffer from chronic pain. I have a rare bone disease called Trevor's disease. That on top of a mystery illness that doctors haven't been able to diagnose yet. But both of those together cause me a lot of chronic pain. And I used to, years ago, I used to be on heavy narcotics for it. And I actually became an addict because of it. So I was on, it started off small just with Vicodin and stuff like that, but it ended up getting to the point where they were prescribing me the highest dose of oxycodone that you can get, which is, it's really, it's a chemical cousin to heroin. It's essentially the same type of like addiction level and things like that. So I lived that way for years. And basically I didn't have any motivation in life. I was really depressed. My pain wasn't gone. The only thing that it really did for me was it got me so high out of my mind that I wasn't thinking as much about the pain, but the pain was still there. And we hear that from a lot of different chronic pain sufferers as well. So my situation wasn't unique in those regards. But after a while, I just the only thing that I can describe it as is a direct intervention from God. It was just time for me to stop living that way because one of the scary things is the life expectancy of a chronic pain sufferer is significantly shorter than a normal person because and it's not because of the chronic pain itself. It's because of all the dangerous narcotics and there's just a lot of overdose situations or even even if people take it normally, it destroys your liver, it ruins your internal organs, and has all sorts of negative effects. So I knew, and especially after Christina and I had our first child, my daughter Jacqueline, I really wanted to be there for her. I wanted to be around as long as possible for her and for Christina, and also my depression was bringing my whole family down with me. So. And this was before I heard of any kind of herbal supplements or anything like that. I didn't really believe any of that stuff worked at the time. I didn't think anything really would. But so I went through the process of getting clean. I stopped cold turkey, and that was the worst hell of my life. It went on for a week before I started to get some kind of relief from the withdrawals. But it was really, really bad. And just by the grace of God and my amazing wife, they got me through that horrible situation. And shortly after, I heard about this herbal supplement called Kratom. And some people pronounce it kratom, and I say kratom. It's a Kratom. It's an herb from Indonesia, Thailand, that area. And I was looking online, and I saw a lot of reports of people that said it really worked for their chronic pain. And by this time, my chronic pain was in full flare, and it was really bad because now I had all the narcotics out of my system, so all it was me and the disease. So I did as much research as I could online. I decided to try it. And basically what it is, it's just a leaf, and it comes crushed up, and you make tea out of it. Or you can you can get it in capsules. But so I decided to try it, and it actually really worked. I didn't get high from it like I did with morphine or oxycodone or anything like that. But it wasn't that I was so high out of my mind that I couldn't feel, I wasn't thinking about the pain like before. This time, it actually was taking care of the pain. The actual pain decreased. So that I was able to start playing with my kids again. I could go on walks with my wife, and it was all around a really good alternative. And so I've been on that for years. The only time I had to go back on narcotics shortly was I had a hip replacement because of my bone disease, and for about a month or two after that, they had me on Vicodin. But after that, that was it. So so ever since then, I've been taking Kratom every day. It's worked really well. I stay clear-headed. It's actually more related to coffee than anything else. But a couple of weeks ago, I got a text from a friend that said that the DEA wants to ban Kratom for some reason. And this was before I really knew much about the DEA or knew much about like any of these processes that they go through. So that, I'm a researcher by nature, so that threw me into researcher mode. And come to find out that the DEA wants to put Kratom as a Schedule I substance, which means it would be on the same level as heroin and LSD, things like that, which it's so not. It's just it's
like it.
Not. It's not like that at all. But so it's totally ridiculous. But they want to put it. They want to put it as that. So basically, at September 30th is when this is supposed to happen. When this ban is supposed to go through, and if it does, people like me are legally or by the standards of the law, we're the same as heroin addicts. But the thing about Kratom is it's actually been used to treat narcotic addiction and heroin addiction. There's something about it that helps people get off of really harmful street drugs. So of course I wanted to know, well, why is this happening? This is ridiculous. There aren't, and I wanted to know if there were any confirmed deaths or overdoses or what the DEA's excuse was for doing this. So basically, and this is from their own, their own statements. They say it's a national health crisis, and they say that, or an imminent health hazard, because between the years of 2010 and 2016, and I'm doing this off memory, so I'm hoping I get these figures right, but there have been 30 Kratom-related deaths in the world. Now, when they say Kratom-related, I wanted to know what that meant. Basically, as long as Kratom was in a person's system when they died, even if they died from a heroin overdose, as long as Kratom was in their system, it doesn't matter what actually caused the death. They can say that it's Kratom related. So, of course, I wanted to know, well, how many actual deaths were caused by Kratom? Not a single confirmed one anywhere in the world. And the DEA has even admitted that there's not one single confirmed case of full-on Kratom related, or Kratom death. So that blew my mind. And actually, there were some other strange things too. They claimed that there were something like, I'm going to try to look up some of these figures, because I have them all in this blog that I wrote. And if people want to check this out, it's joshpeckdisclosure.blogspot.com. Let me see here. Okay, so the DEA cites that it's from a CDC report that there have been 660 calls to poison control services due to kratom-related incidents between the years of 2010 and 2015. So in a 5-year span, there have been 660 calls. But to put that in perspective, there have been more than 10 times the number of calls, and it's actually 6,843 to be exact, calls to poison control services concerning children ingesting laundry detergent pods in only the first 7 months of 2016. So why isn't the DEA going after that? Why are they? So just by comparison, kratom is pretty safe. I mean, there's always going to be, with anything like this, there's always going to be people that are going to take way too much of it and get sick. And that's the thing too, with no confirmed deaths. When I first started taking this myself, because it's not FDA approved, so when you buy it, you don't get any directions on how to take it, because technically it's illegal to, sell it for human consumption because it's not FDA approved. So I kind of had to go trial and error. So the first couple times the first time I took it, I just took a really small dose and it worked fine and it was great. But of course, there were a couple of times in trying to see what the correct dosage was. I got sick off of it, but all it was is I felt really car sick for about an hour. I laid down, took a nap, and then I felt great. And that's just my experience, but that's all it was. So I can see how people taking something like this and not really knowing what it's all about, and then it makes them sick. I could see why people might call poison control, but again, there have been no confirmed deaths at any time that from a kratom overdose all around the world.
Josh, where do you get your kratom?
There's different online vendors, and actually, I live in Crane, Missouri. There's a place in Springfield that I just go and get it. I mean, you can get it pretty much anywhere. I mean, it's the unfortunate thing though is it's so unknown that there are a lot of people suffering from chronic pain now who have never heard of this, and actually who their first hearing of kratom is because of this DEA ban. So now it's like they find hope where they might be able to get off of narcotics and actually get their lives back, but the DEA is banning it. So
isn't that just one of those things that you sense that the pharmaceutical companies are seeing something cut into their bottom line, and that evidently is one. Yes,
I totally believe that. And when I first went into this research, like everything else I've researched, I try to let the research define my beliefs or my opinions about it, not the other way around. I don't try to make up my mind and then find research to support that belief. I don't think that's the right way to research. So I tried my hardest to see it from the side of the DEA. Like, is there any logical reason for them to do this? Because they're claiming that they care about public safety and public health, and they're claiming all that, but I couldn't find anywhere. I could not find one fact to support that. The only thing that it kept coming back to is the pharmaceutical companies, that they time and time again that they want people on narcotics because they can regulate that, they can upsell that. There are certain things put in place that they can't regulate something that's not approved by the FDA, like herbal supplements and stuff, and that's why a lot of natural remedies have come under attack in recent years. The government, the DEA, they can't regulate it, so they can't really make money on it. But something like Vicodin or morphine or OxyContin or something like that, they can charge hundreds of percent, more than what it actually costs to make, and it's a big business. So something like kratom, a natural remedy that actually works, it's not harmful, it doesn't hurt anybody. There's actually things in there that are healthy for you. That's a threat to these companies.
So is kratom a drug?
I mean, it's an herbal remedy. It's an herbal supplement. I don't consider it a drug.
Let me ask something. Okay, so you had pain.
Yep.
And then you've discovered it. You heard it, maybe researched it on the internet, whatever. You took it. Now, how long did it take for the pain to go away?
Within 20 minutes.
Oh, really? So you didn't have to take it over an extended period of time. Has anybody reported? And did you say you had pain in your legs?
Yeah, it's in my feet, my hands, in my right hip and right knee.
Sort of your extremities then. Okay. So besides those, let's just say, has anybody reported pain in other parts of the body? I mean, is it generalized to those specific areas?
Oh, it's anywhere. Anywhere you have pain. I mean, even people have taken it for headaches. People have even taken it for anxiety issues or PTSD. There's actually a large number of disabled Army vets, military veterans who take Kratom. There's videos on YouTube that I've seen of brave American soldiers who have won awards for defending our country, who are now disabled, and they take Kratom because it works, instead of pharmaceuticals, because it actually does something, and now they can't have it, and that's why this is like so important to me, because, well, for one thing, if and when this ban goes through, it's going to be, of course, it's going to be hard for me to deal with, and I don't really know exactly what that's going to look like. But there are people out there who this is going to affect a lot more than even me. Unfortunately, this is a life or death situation. People are going to die over this, because when this ban goes through, people like me are faced with a choice. Either we can risk being illegal and trying to store up Kratom, but for me, that's not an option. I have kids, I can't risk going to jail for basically like having heroin in my house or something. Or we can just deal with the pain and just live in misery every day, or we can go back on hard pharmaceutical drugs, and then our life expectancy is significantly shortened. And so, I mean, people are going to have to make that tough choice. I don't want back on narcotics. For me personally, I'd rather just try and deal with the pain as best as I can. And there's other natural remedies that I'm looking into now, and I'm posting about on my YouTube channel. So if people want more information on this, they can go to youtube.com/Josh Peck Disclosure, or just go to sharpeningreport.com. And I'm going to keep posting videos on this, because there are some other possible natural things that might help with chronic pain that I'm in the process of ordering, and I'm going to try it. And I don't want to say what they are just yet, because I don't want to accidentally promote something that might not work or might, but. Yeah. Yeah,
Josh, it seems that the way you describe it sort of mirrors or parallels the fight for marijuana legalization. What's your view on that?
What's interesting, before this whole Kratom ban thing happened, if you would have asked me that even just like a couple weeks ago or a month ago, I would have said, well, that's a complicated issue. I don't really know. I don't really think about it a whole lot. If it's for medicinal use, I guess. But as far as just open legalization, that's a slippery slope. But I don't feel like that anymore. And the reason is because if it's something that's just for medical purposes, just medicinal, that unfortunately gives all these companies and everything that gives them the option to upsell it. So even if Kratom were regulated, right now I can get a month's supply for $20, if even that. And actually, I could probably get a month's supply on $10, but it's really cheap, and it works really well.
To finish that out, then, are you saying that your view about legalizing marijuana is altered because of that?
Yes.
Because it fits the category. It is a herb. There's documented, from cancer people who need to encourage their appetite, to glaucoma, to easing pain, to mood disorders. Kind of reminds me a little bit. I'm going to stick something political in there, but Hillary wants to sort of take the guns, but yet she's surrounded for the last 35 years by people with big, powerful guns. And the idea that one group of people can write a law to make somebody else do something or not do something, but not adhere to that same law, just really disgusts me. And for somebody to write a law, and even attempt to write a law saying you can't take this herbal remedy because we don't like you. Well, the odds are we don't like the drug. I think if you follow that back, you're going to find the pharmaceuticals are behind the writing of the law. It's the same way in the beginning. That's how marijuana became on the Schedule 1, is because the alcohol industry didn't want competition. So they come up with something to say, well, besides the fact the government itself was planting marijuana in farmers' fields in World War II, they didn't want the competition. So you're never getting a straight story, and you're never getting an honest answer. And they're always manipulating us with their stupid data, which only could be skewed to make them look good.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree. I'm behind that 100%. And yeah, that this whole kratom thing really did change my mind and open my eyes to a lot of things involving herbal remedies and with the whole to finish my thoughts on the marijuana issue, I'm to the point now I really do believe it should just be legalized. And I know like my main thought before why I thought well maybe not, was, well, people are going to take it just to get high. And yeah, okay. Well, we all have a personal responsibility to use things responsibly. I mean, people use alcohol for the same thing. So why should somebody who just wants to take it to get high or whatever, that's not my choice. I don't want to get high. I just want to not be in pain. So why should somebody else's choice have to ruin it for everybody? And and it's their own personal choice. It has nothing to do with me or anybody else. And the government shouldn't step in and tell us how to be responsible for ourselves like that. Now, of course, with other things like murder and stuff like that, of course we want laws in place, but if somebody just doesn't want to be in pain, or if somebody just doesn't want to be sober for a few hours, so what? And so I'm to the point now I really do think that this stuff should just be legalized. It should be up to the individual. I know for me, my conscience is clear because, for those watching who might not be familiar with me or my work, I am a Christian. I come, from a Christian background, and all the research I do is from a Christian perspective. I don't believe I'm super preachy about it or anything, though. I have a lot of correspondence with people of other beliefs, but especially with this whole kratom thing, which is really interesting because the kratom users have really band together in a way that I would kind of like to see Christians do, but anyway,
that ain't gonna happen.
Yeah, but so going back to that whole issue, it should be a person's own responsibility. Like for me, I believe in the Bible and it tells us to be sober minded. So for me, I can take kratom and I'm more sober minded than I am when I'm in gut wrenching pain and I can't think straight because I'm hurting so bad and I'm confined to my bed and so to me that's the better alternative anyway. I have a clear conscience about it, and actually my wife and I this is something recent. We're looking into alternatives for kratom to deal with my chronic pain, and I've never used marijuana like medicinally. I smoked it one time when I was in high school, but
did you inhale?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay, good.
But I didn't really. It actually made me sick. I didn't really like it. But anyway, well, we looked into kratom alternatives, and Christina and I talked about it, and we decided that if there was an option to get some medical marijuana somehow, that I would try it. Unfortunately, we live in Missouri, and it's not legal even medicinally, so I don't even have that option, and neither does anybody in Missouri. So since this whole thing started, I've been posting a lot about it, and because of that, I've been getting a lot of response from kratom users and a lot of testimonies from people who their life has been changed for the better because of kratom. My inbox is full of testimonies now.
So do you feel like one way or another you're becoming a leading voice in the fight for the freedom of kratom?
I hope so. I feel that God has blessed me with certain skills and a certain audience, and to me, what it all boils down to is, in my belief, I'm going to have to stand before God someday and give an account of my actions, and I want to be able to tell him that at least in this situation, I did everything I could, and I used everything that he gave me to try to get this to not happen. And that's something I should talk about too, is what can be done about this, which there's a few different things. So if people are watching and they want to know what they can do, how they can get involved, they can go to AmericanKratom.org. That's the American Kratom Association. That's like the national group for everything kratom, and they've really been leading the charge in trying to get this overturned to where the DEA won't do this. There's a petition that people can sign, which the way that it works is if the petition gets over 100,000 signatures, then let me find it here.
100,000?
Yes, if it gets over 100,000 signatures, then it'll issue a response from the White House.
Right.
Well,
right,
we have that, so that's good. But we want to get past 200,000 to really show Congress that this is important and it's going to hurt a lot of people. So at least they can't claim ignorance. At least then, if they go through with it, they have no excuse. They can't. There's no, oh, we didn't know. There's not. They'll do it knowingly.
So there is the knowledge of kratom and what it does. But right now, as far as the DEA is concerned, is that the center of their target harassment?
For right now, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's for right now. That's what they're really, and they're trying to say that they're doing this in the fight against narcotics and stuff like that. And again, I can't see any reason.
Let me ask something, Josh. Now, I'm not claiming to be a Bible scholar. You certainly do a lot, and I'm sure I can rely on you for your professional opinion when it comes to biblical matters. But is there a term that's used, say, in Christendom, where you read a scripture and you can extrapolate a judgment from that? I'm going to use this one here, where it said, take a little wine for thy stomach's sake. Could we extrapolate and say, take a little kratom for thy pain's sake? And then could we go even further and say, take a little marijuana for your attitude, your mentality state? I mean, isn't it just a matter of where you draw the line?
Well, the good thing about the Bible is it draws the line for us, because it says that, which that implies, medicinal use, but it doesn't say, take a bunch of wine to get drunk and stumble around or anything. Mm-hmm. And actually, it also talks about, there's this word in the Greek called pharmakeia, which is actually where we get our term pharmacy or pharmaceuticals from. And in the Greek, so in the New Testament, it's translated as sorcery. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times that's sort of misunderstood on what exactly that means, mm-hmm. because some people either think, well, it's witchcraft, or they think, well, it's just if you take any kind of drugs or anything for anything, then that's mm-hmm. a pharmakeia spirit. And mm-hmm. it's not really either of those two extremes. What it is if you and it doesn't even have to be drugs, it can just be any kind of practice. But when you do something, say take a drug or get high for the purposes of trying to commune with the spirit world or get closer to God or, mm-hmm. or something like that. Yeah. That's really what it's talking about. So now there is a large growing number of Christians who believe biblically that it's okay to just smoke pot whenever you want, even if it's not medicinal, and you can just mm-hmm. do it, and God's okay with it. And
here in Indianapolis, they were pushing the envelope here in Indianapolis. There's something called the Church of Mary Jane going on. I'm not exactly sure what's happening with that. Baby Wolf in the UK wants to know: do you know if kratom is legal in the UK?
I'm not sure. I believe it. I believe it is. Actually, I believe it is, because when I was looking for kratom alternatives, I saw a bunch of websites from the UK selling mm-hmm. Selling kratom. So at mm-hmm. least in certain parts of it, I believe it is. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so the way that I look at it biblically is I think it's all a heart issue. It's all, what is your motivation for doing it? I'm not trying to escape my life. I'm not trying to escape God's plans for me. I'm not. And actually, the only thing I want is I want to be healthy. I want to be mm-hmm. restored to where my body should be, the way that God created it. Mm-hmm. I want to take care of all these diseases and this chronic pain and everything. I want to be sober-minded. And a pain reliever like kratom can help me get there, or for some, marijuana can help them get there. And I looked into that myself as an alternative. So that's how I look at it biblically. You just might evolve into something larger. And here's a question for you, Dr. Peck.
Do you know of something natural for a thyroid disease?
Actually, I have a good friend named Amy Denise, and I did a video with her on YouTube, and she takes kratom for thyroid. Now, again, in 2 weeks, it's going to be illegal, so I don't know how much help that's going to be. But in those videos, I have 3 or 4 videos on kratom now, and in those videos, people have been commenting a lot of their own natural remedies or things that they've used to treat things like chronic pain or thyroid issues. So I would suggest checking that out and getting involved in the conversation there. Everybody there has been really, really nice, which is surprising for YouTube comments, as I'm sure you're well aware.
Yeah, I am. I got the devil, according to some people. So, hey, what do you recommend to cure Hillary Clinton's Parkinson's disease?
Oh, man. How conservative do I want to be here?
Just zip that right on in there. Here's another question for you. Is there an age limit to taking kratom?
Yeah, you have to be over 18 to buy it. But I've heard of people giving it to their kids, and I know that's a controversial issue, but the way I mean, again, it's just a morality thing. If your kid is in pain and is suffering, and if you feel relatively safe that you know what you're doing, but you at least the legal age to buy it is you got to be 18 or older.
Mm-hmm. All right. Now somebody said, do you deal with ginseng in any way?
Not yet, but I've heard that it has really good benefits. Actually, a guy that I work with at Skywatch TV, Jake Rahutsky, he's mentioned that ginseng has helped people that he's known.
Mm-hmm.
So he actually has offered to bring me some. So if it works as well as he says it does, I'm going to be reporting on it on my YouTube channel and website for sure.
Yeah, and I would think maybe another one would be royal jelly. That's a sort of a superfood. And as a beekeeper myself, I can tell you that what makes a queen bee is they feed her royal jelly, and that turns her into a super bee. And I'm wondering, man, maybe if we all eat large quantities of royal jelly, that we turn into superhumans, maybe even cyborgs, or I mean, we're going to have to be a lot bigger if we're going to fight the Nephilim. We're going to have to beef up a little bit there, and I'm just wondering how we're going to do it. But so there, again, it grates me that somebody's controlling something that benefits somebody else. There's just too much meddling of the federal government in everyday matters. They have no business of doing that. And you talk about the amount of people that the amount of kids that swallowed detergent. Well, if you turn over the back of a toothpaste, it says, if you ingest more than a pea side of this, call your poison center. So How many people are being poisoned by fluoride when the government is pushing that? So to me, that's the government pushing drugs. So on one hand, they're pushing medication, and it's medicating the population without their consent when they put it in the water. And on the other hand, they're telling it's so convoluted and skewed. There's no logic to anything they say. We shouldn't feel bad no matter what choice we make, whether it's legal or illegal, because I think of what you said, it's more of a heart condition. And I guess that's the libertarian streak in me. It was never meant to be that the government tells you what to take and where to go, what to do, buy health insurance. I mean, that's just an opening door. This is the same kind of thing. They decide somebody in some backroom office, they have, they don't see the benefits of people such as yourself and the others on those blogs and YouTube channels. They don't see the benefit. There's other things that they're measuring, and it's probably a benefit to themselves more than people personally.
That's what I believe too, and thank God for the good people at the American Kratom Association. I really believe these guys, they're true Americans because they're leading the charge against us. And actually, I want to read this post that they just put up because it's what people can do now, like right now, this weekend actually. So I updated my blog at sharpeningreport.com. You'll see a link for an article where I have all the updated information and new videos and stuff. But basically, how to stop the DEA Kratom ban this weekend from the American Kratom Association. We have some great news that needs urgent action by Tuesday, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard. We, with our lobbyists' help, have found some champions in Congress to write a bipartisan Dear Colleague letter asking the DEA to slow down this process. They are Congressman Pocan of Wisconsin, who Susan Ash, she's the president of the AKA, met with the night before the White House march. There was this big march at the White House. Hundreds of people showed up to protest against this ban. And Salmon of Arizona. The letter asks, among other things, that the director of OMB and acting director of the DEA delay a final decision on the placement of Kratom as a Schedule 1, provide ample time for public comment on this significant decision, and resolve any inconsistencies with our federal agencies regarding the use of Kratom. So this is what we need you to do. Find your representative here and email them over the weekend. And the website is www.house.gov/representatives/find. And you can find that link at sharpeningreport.com. Then use the number below to call your representative first thing Monday morning. Tell them you are a responsible adult consumer of Kratom for help with blank, whatever your ailment is, and ask that they please contact Congressman Pocan's office to sign on to the Pocan/Salmon Dear Colleague letter on this issue. To call your member of Congress, the U.S. Capitol switchboard number is 202-224-3121. So the idea is if they get enough people calling them to support, the effort to stop this ban from going through, we might actually be able to do something. There was a march on the White House lawn. There's also links at americankratom.org. There's a whole list of things that you can do. You can contact your congressman, that we just talked about that. Contact your senator, and they even have a letter template. And you can find that at www.senate.gov/senators/contact. Email the Assistant Secretary of Health, which is ash@hhs.gov. Email her, and her name is Karen B. DeSalvo. Tell her how you feel about this. You can call the DEA, actually, at 202-307-1000. Ask for Melvin Patterson. He's the guy that's handling all this. You press 4 to share your story. So there's a whole bunch of stuff here, and I ask people, as infuriating as this is, and believe me, I know, the only way that we're going to have any kind of success is, unfortunately, if we're kind and respectful to these people. Because if they feel like they're backed into a corner, they're going to feel even more like they have to defend what they already did. Because it'll be a sign of weakness if they don't. So we don't want them to feel like that. Well, to use an analogy you're probably familiar with, you catch more honey with bees, or you catch more bees with honey. What am I talking about? You catch more honey with bees. Be kind, respectful, but be honest too. I mean, this is a travesty. It's going to destroy American lives. The number of deaths, 78 Americans die every day of narcotic abuse. That's going to go through the roof if this thing goes through. So that's what people at home can do.
So why is it that came up on radar to begin with? Did somebody go to Congress? I mean, what's that history there, real quick?
I think what happened was, I don't know for sure, but I think what happened was the DEA started to realize, or pharmaceutical companies maybe started to realize, more people are getting off narcotics and claiming that they're going on Kratom, and then they don't go back to the doctors again. I mean, that's exactly what happened to me. Once I started taking Kratom, I didn't even have to go to the doctor anymore. I'm good. So I think they started to notice that, and because everything's based around money and greed, they decided to do something about it. So that leaves us where we are now. But I don't think they realized exactly how many people across the U.S. this actually is affecting. It seems like there was some surprise on the DEA's part that this many people are taking action and rallying together to stop this thing. So I'm hoping and praying, along with potentially millions of others in across the U.S. that deal with chronic pain, for their sake as well. I'm hoping and praying that this ban doesn't go through.
Well, let me ask you something. I saw somebody in the live chat. They said, would you mind if we pray for you, or at least the person that wrote that, if they can pray for you?
Sure.
Your ultimate goal, of course, would not to take anything. And I suppose that you have prayed. I guess we're going to go a little bit spiritual here. So from that standpoint, you still had the pain. So, okay, you've prayed. So, and then you found a remedy. I mean, something that helps. So do you think that the answer to the prayer, and I'm really, Josh, I'm just assuming that you prayed or had somebody pray for you. Sure. I mean, if I was sick, I'd take all the prayers I could get. So do you think that the prayers were answered by you finding out about Kratom, and God didn't want to, say, have a supernatural thing? And if so, what would be the reasoning there, you think?
Yeah, that's something that I've wondered too. If I'm in pain, why doesn't God just miraculously heal me? And I think any chronic pain sufferer has probably had those thoughts too. But the way that I view it, if God would have supernaturally healed me when I first asked for it, I would not be championing this cause right now. I wouldn't have even heard of Kratom. This would not be on my radar. And the audience that I have, working with Skywatch TV has opened me up to millions of people across the U.S. I would have used that for other things, which is fine. But then the people who really need it, I mean, there are people who are in chronic pain who don't believe in God, but God still loves them. God doesn't want them to be in pain. And somebody needs to stand up and fight for these people who can't stand up for themselves. If God would have supernaturally healed me, I would not be doing this right now. And if this can help in any way, even if the ban goes through, but at least people know that there's at least alternative remedies or something, or even somebody that out there that cares, because that can mean the world to somebody. I would gladly go through a lifetime of pain if it means that type of change can be done in somebody's life. So to me, I have no quarrels with God about it. I can look back and understand his reasonings for doing it the way he did it, because there are other people out there suffering. So that's probably the best answer I could give for that.
Well, I guess if somebody say who wouldn't believe in God say, well, here's a, you don't need God, you've got a herb. But I guess maybe you should ask them the question, well, where did that herb come from? Did it come from a primordial soup? Did it just jump out on the land and right next to a dinosaur? I mean, you can't, if there is such a herb, whether or not you got answered by supernaturally by prayer, or you frankly got it sound supernaturally of the idea that there is a plant, there is a herb that came out of this earth that is here that has helped you. So that didn't come out of a vacuum. That comes back to the space. They may deny God on from the supernatural standpoint, but where did the herb come from? And you can go back, trace that all the way back, and it didn't come from a monkey. And I don't know, where the explanation is when you're looking at primordial soup, where you got the monkey jumping out and then you got the herbs jumping out. And it doesn't make any sense. So somebody created that herb.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe that too, and I mean the Bible corroborates that. It says that every herb and seed-bearing plant and all this stuff is for us. So, I mean, it's the way that the Bible describes it. It's all good with God. I mean, He gave us healing plants and things for that purpose, because we live in a fallen, imperfect world, because again, we have a spiritual enemy out there that screwed up a bunch of stuff, and we have to deal with the consequence of that, and God wants to give us a fighting chance. So we have remedies like that, and the rest of it just adds to our testimony. At least that's been my experience. I went through a long period of my life questioning why God would allow me to have this weird bone disease that, I mean, it's so rare. As far as I know, there's only one other person in the United States that even has it, that I've been able to confirm that actually has it. And there's only about 1 million people, documented cases ever. And that's out of, 7 billion today, and, God knows how many before that. So for a long time, I really questioned God, why He gave me this weird, but now that I'm older and I can kind of see some of the purposes in it, and I don't believe that He gave it to me necessarily. I just believe that I was born in a fallen world and things like that happen. But I believe that God has provided us remedies for that. And if this doesn't go through, I mean, of course, the ideal situation would be that I just don't have to take anything. But if this ban doesn't go through and I have to take Kratom every day for the rest of my life just to not be in pain, well, it's better than nothing. It's better than being in pain every day. So at least it's something. And in my opinion, it's better than being on narcotics that will kill me in a few years anyway. What kind of life is that?
Josh, if it is successful that Kratom gets off the radar, do you feel like you might sort of, as you're apparently becoming a voice? I mean, you're talking about tonight for right there is one, and you've got these YouTube channels and the responses you're getting. Are you going to move on to another herb? Because there's plenty of, one of the things, say from my beekeeping experience, is that at one point they tried to ban bee pollen because they couldn't measure it, and but bee pollen was healing people of allergies. So the makers of Claritin, they say, hey, it's a herb, it's unregulated. You can't, it's unsafe. They actually try to do that. So it's like, so do you feel like you might move on to another Kratom type of thing where people are getting some good benefits out of something that the government doesn't like?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And luckily there are at least a few, as of right now, legal alternatives. And again, I haven't tried them yet, so I don't know exactly how it's going to work, or if at all, because reviews online are mixed. But there's some different seeds that come out of Africa that might work. There's other plants that come out of the Indonesia, Thailand region that might work. It doesn't seem like there's anything that works as good as Kratom, but these might at least be alternatives that might do something. And again, for people who are interested in that, I absolutely am going to keep up on this. I'm going to keep reporting on it, and I'm going to keep talking about it. And if I find anything that alleviates the pain at all, I absolutely will post about it and let people know.
Okay, so that's what you're going to do. Are you going to, if it passes, are you going to try to get some seeds and grow it in your backyard?
I thought about that, and that's actually one of the choices that like people have been considering. Do I buy a bunch of it now and store it, or try to grow it myself? And I guess growing it's not really an option because it takes a really humid environment and a lot of. You would need to build a greenhouse. It's just a whole big deal that you'd have to go through to grow it. But that or buying a lot and storing it, and that I was going to do that until I found out that if you even possess it, it's going to be the same charge as if you had heroin. So for me, if I didn't have kids and if I wasn't married and I didn't really have anything going on, I might just risk it. Yeah. But because of that, I can't risk it.
Yeah, representatives from Colorado are in Indiana, where I'm at, and they're trying to convince our legislature not to legalize marijuana for any use. But really, you say, well, that sounds commendable, except for the fact that Colorado is raking in hundreds of millions of dollars of tax dollars. It's kind of like the only state in the beginning when Vegas had, they're the only ones that had casinos. They were telling everybody else, you don't want those. You don't want those, because they knew that people would stop traveling to Vegas, So Colorado's doing the same thing. Well, they're trying to say that we shouldn't do it, but what they're really saying is a lot of people coming out there with their tax dollars and their spending and all that goes with it, the travel and everything to indulge. And so, again, a manipulation. They don't want Indiana, and eventually I imagine the way it's looking, probably it's going to go nationwide anyway, the legalization. But really, there's the angle there. They want to slow it down so that they can reap the huge windfall of profits before anybody else does.
Yeah, exactly. And my belief now is it should just be legalized everywhere, and everybody has a personal responsibility to use it wisely. Because like I said, I used to believe that, okay, well, let's just legalize it for medicinal use. But if we do that, it's going to be upcharged so much and people won't be able to afford it anyway. At least if it's just legalized everywhere and people are just taking it to get high or whatever, but at least that provides chronic pain sufferers with an affordable option, something they can actually do and afford that's not regulated by the government. So I'm and I never thought I would be this way, which is again, even just a month ago, if you would have asked me that same question, I would have a totally different answer. But now having dealt with this personally and understanding a little bit more and having my eyes opened a little bit more as to all the ins and outs of this issue, I do believe that it should just be legalized everywhere, and people we're adults, people can be responsible for themselves.
Okay. All right, Josh, here's where we take about a 5-minute break. You'll be out of the picture here for about 5 minutes. I'll bring you back here about 9:06 looks like. Before we go, you want to talk about your website. Tell what the address is right there.
Sure. It's sharpeningreport.com, and that's where they can find my show, The Sharpening Report. We actually have a new host now, James DeWitt. He's an awesome guy, awesome host. But I'm still going to be, heavily involved in the show. But that's also where I have all my Kratom updates and all my blogs and everything. Basically, the central hub of everything Josh Peck can be found at sharpeningreport.com. And if people have questions or they want to talk to me, you can email me at joshpeckdisclosure@gmail.com, and I'll be happy to accept your email. Okay.
All right. We'll be back with you in 5 minutes there, Josh.
Sounds good.
All right, everybody, you're watching and or listening to the Edge Television broadcast. My name is Daniel Ott. If you missed any of the exciting broadcasts, it will begin to replay in our main player directly after the show. We'll put it up in our YouTube channel and our TuneIn Radio playlist and podcast it as well. Next week, Doug Woodward's going to be here. But in the second hour, when we come back with Josh Peck, we're going to be talking about something called, it's part of a book that he's involved with Doug Woodward, Anthony Patch, and I'm going to get this wrong, Gon Samara, and it is... Revising Reality. So stay tuned for that. If you got questions for that, you can log on to the Fast Blast or put it in the live chat. And welcome back to the Edge Television broadcast. My name is Daniel Ott. If you have a question for tonight's guest, Josh Peck of the Sharpening Report, go to the edgeam.com website. Click on the Fast Blast link or join him in the live chat where Jade, our moderator, will send those questions through a secret Skype channel and keep those questions succinct. We're going to be talking about with Josh about revising reality. Let's go back to our Newsmaker line, Skype Live with Josh Peck. Josh, welcome back. All right. Well, great to have you back there, Josh. Now, listen, I'm one to believe that what we see in this life, there's something going on with it. It's not everything that we see is not exactly what there really is. Now, is this the nature of your book, or where are you guys going with this book?
Yeah, Basically, it's called Revising Reality. It's a biblical look into the cosmos. The subtitle is How Dramatic New Discoveries from Biblical Text and Breakthroughs in Modern Physics Are Transforming Our View of the Cosmos. And it's written by myself, Doug Woodward, who you're going to have on at some point in the future. Excellent, great guy. Gon Shimura, he runs Face Like the Sun, and he did the Age of Deceit 1 and 2 documentaries. Absolutely fantastic filmmaker and writer. And, of course, Anthony Patch, who, for people out there who are living under a rock, maybe haven't heard of Anthony Patch, but that's okay. He covers things like CERN and electric universe theory and things like that. And the cool thing about this book is, well, for one thing, it's volume 1 of a 2-volume set. Volume 2 is in the process, but we just released volume 1. We all wrote 2 or 3 chapters on it. And it's basically looking at reality as we know it, but from the viewpoint of not only ancient texts, but new physics, new scientific breakthroughs, and trying to figure out basically exactly what you said. What is going on with reality? There seems to be something that's more than what the eye can see. So we each put a few chapters together, and also what's interesting is the reader will get some everything's unique, but also sort of differing perspectives. For example, Anthony Patch, I love the guy to death. He is an absolutely brilliant researcher, way smarter than myself. He's like a champion of electric universe theory, which I find really interesting. I'm not as familiar with it as he, and Doug Woodward is also writes a little bit about that. I'm not as familiar with it, but I find it fascinating. Me, I'm more the gravitational model kind of guy, like Einstein and stuff like that. So you'll get that perspective, the mainstream physics, but you'll also get the electric universe. And what's interesting is these two theories in some ways can kind of go hand in hand. So it's I have to promote it, but I hope it doesn't sound too braggy to say that it's an absolutely phenomenal book. But that's because of the other authors in there. I don't know what I'm doing in there, but
it's a masterpiece.
But no, it was a lot of fun to write. I think people are really going to get a lot out of this, and we actually just put it up for sale. It's now available in paperback. People can go to sharpeningreport.com for more information on where to get it and everything.
So how does 4 authors come together? Did you see, was there a flow or is it choppy?
No, actually, the flow was pretty good. Well, the good thing is we've all been friends for a really long time. Me and Doug Woodward, in a lot of ways, Doug Woodward has kind of been my mentor in writing and things. My first major release, Quantum Creation, a lot of that was from Doug's advice on how to polish up my writing and everything. Quantum Creation definitely wasn't my first book. My first book was Disclosure, which I think is still a good book. But if people read Disclosure and then they read Quantum Creation, they can tell there is a major increase in my writing abilities. And I give Doug Woodward the credit for that. He helped me out a lot in the process. But he and I have been friends for a long time. Me and Gons have been friends for a long time. His show, Canary Cry Radio, that was one of the first interviews that I ever did, where I didn't, know the host already, and so that was how I met Gons a couple of years ago. And then Anthony Patch, I met for the 100th episode of the Sharpening Report, which is my show. The 100th episode, right before I moved to Crane, Missouri to accept a job at Skywatch TV, I did the 100th episode of the Sharpening Report. I had Anthony Patch on as like a surprise guest. It was a big hit. A lot of people absolutely loved it, and he had a lot of really interesting things to say. And also Doug Woodward was in that interview too. So that was kind of the first time we had a chance to get together and see if there was a flow. So all of this, really, I got to give Doug Woodward a lot of credit because he's the one that spearheaded this whole effort and kept the flow consistent. And it turned out phenomenal. I should say too that the foreword was written by Stan Deo, so people are familiar with him and like his work. It kind of falls along those lines.
Man, that is an all-star cast there. But let me ask something. To say revising reality. Is that indicating that it needs to be revised? And then if so, who established the original revision, I guess, the reality.
Well, see, yeah, exactly, and that's a really good question. A lot of why we believe reality works, in the ways that we believe it does. Just speaking from a personal basis, not from a scientific one. Most people, it's what I can see or hear, that's what exists, and there's nothing more to it. That's just it. And I think a lot of people are in that camp, which is fine, but there is more to it. Even more scientifically minded people, and I consider myself in that camp. I am a Christian, but I also love science. There are even things in there where it's like, okay, so our bodies are made of particles, and some of those particles are held together by various forces, and that's it. Right. And that's still not the whole story. And that's not even getting into the God discussion yet. Just scientifically, there's still more to that story, which gets into things like quantum field theory and other various aspects of nature. So revising reality, it's taking what we think reality is, which is just what we can see, hear, taste, touch, and smell, but revising it to a more accurate portrayal of what true nature really is, which, in my opinion, is vibrations in quantum fields. But even that requires more explanation, because where do those vibrations come from? Even scientists today will say they don't know, but it's got to be something extra dimensional, something from a higher dimension, or something outside of dimensionality. So of course, me being a Christian, and not trying to ascribe to the God of the gaps idea, but me as a Christian, I look at Hebrews chapter 11 that says that things that are visible are made from things that are invisible, meaning I look at that as God being outside of dimensional space and time, and it's His force or energy or whatever you want to call it, that's causing these fields to vibrate, which in turn is producing particles. Those particles get together. We're here. We have form to us and physicality to us. So I that's what I believe. I believe everything physical is a manifestation directly from God through these quantum fields.
So the errant reality. When you said vibration, I was thinking of the Beach Boys, good vibrations. So the good vibrations then is that where you're trying to get to? Because if reality needs to be revised, that means the original reality is a lie, and there must be bad vibrations. So, are you trying to chart a path toward good vibrations?
Well, it's just the idea that we are made of these vibrations, and even in that, people kind of have to be careful, because it's really easy to get into New Age theology in that way. And, me being a Christian, I don't recommend New Age theology. I actually used to be really heavily into New Age practices and beliefs, and it about ruined my life. So I'm out of all that now. But so it's easy to ascribe New Age theologies onto this kind of stuff, but really the way that I'm trying to look at it is, it's just a physical fact. We're just the particles that make up our bodies. All a particle really is, and I mean, this is scientific, this is quantum field theory. Actually, the only reason the LHC at CERN even works is because quantum field theory is an accurate definition of reality. Otherwise, there's no way it could work. But basically, just our particles, the particle itself is a vibration in a quantum field. So you get enough of those together, you get bodies and things. But that also kind of goes into the idea of, well, can we manipulate that in some way? And there are people that will take like the double slit experiment, which, for those not familiar, basically you have like an electron gun of sorts that shoots out electrons, and based on if there's detectors or people watching or what have you, the electrons behave differently. There's a lot more to it than that, but that's just for sake of time constraints, that's the basic gist of it. That's where the argument is. So there are some people that believe that we control it with our minds somehow. That's not exactly accurate. It could be anything. It doesn't have to be a conscious person. It doesn't have to be a particle detector. It could just be a pile of concrete. What's actually happening there is, on a quantum level, you have a large collection of particles that are interacting with these various fields that permeate all space. So when you have a large collection of particles like that interacting, it's going to affect the experiment. So that's all that's happening. It has nothing to do with consciousness or, the idea that we create our world around. It has nothing to do with that. So that's quantum field theory. That's part of what I look at and how we should be defining reality for ourselves, and even through a biblical view. And more on the spiritual side, I also talk about angels and Nephilim and giants, and how all that played a part too.
When you were talking there, this is the edge. This is the edge part of my brain, man. It materialized some thoughts. The Amish, they are scared to death of electricity. They don't like it. They think it's the devil. So you talk about this thing called the electric universe. That reminded me. This is so stupid. Okay, but in the Pirates of the Caribbean, they're on a ship, and the woman says, well, I don't believe in nightmares. And the captain says, well, you should, because you're in one. And I'm thinking, that's what the Amish say. We don't believe in universe, but you're in one, So, I don't know. Why is it that people ascribe an evil to the electric universe, or the powers of the air, that things flying around? I mean, you're talking about vibrations and stuff that they say is completely evil. I mean, how do you differentiate the evil from the good, or the fact that we are here, because the evil apparently dwells in that realm?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that what's happened throughout time is the enemy, the spiritual enemy, has utilized various aspects of nature towards their own goals. So we have evil things that come from what should be good things, and really, I mean, we can even see that in things like the internet. I mean, the internet can be used for really good things. We can use it to evangelize the world, tell people about Christ, donate to worthy causes. There's a lot of good that can come from the internet, but there's also a lot of evil and a lot of addictions and families being ruined over things like porn addiction and things like that. So somebody could look at the bad and say, well, the whole thing is wrong. The whole thing is evil. The internet is evil because of these bad things. But I think when you look at both sides of it, it's really just what you do with the information, what you do with what you have available. So the way I see it, God created, the universe, all of reality. Now, whether it's electric universe theory or gravitational Einsteinian, theory, I don't know. I have no idea, but I think both are interesting. But however he did it, whatever processes he's used.
What is a vibration?
It's just energy. It's just essentially like an energy fluctuation. It's an energy spike. And actually, like, if we think about what a spike would look like on a graph, if we have like a line and then there's a spike, well, that's a two-dimensional representation of what an energy spike would look like. But if you have that in 3 dimensions, that spike in energy would come out at all points at once. You'd have a sphere. That's what a particle is. That's why particles are spherical like that. It's really just an energy spike. And Einstein was able to show that energy and mass are interchangeable. That's what the whole E equals MC squared thing is all about. That's another thing too. Our world constantly tells us that you have to be a genius to understand science, especially quantum physics. If you're not a genius, don't even bother trying. We'll explain it to you. Leave it to the experts. I think that's all a bunch of garbage. This stuff, because I believe that this is the process God used, it should be accessible to us. I mean, if we're children of God, if He wants us to have access to Him, it seems like these things should be understandable, and they are. That was one of the most mind-blowing things in my research for this book and other books that I've done, is that things like quantum physics don't have to be super complicated. Basically, all it is are that scientists speak a different language than we do. They don't speak to the layman, and when they try, they fail miserably, and they don't explain things right. And then people start calling the Higgs boson the God particle, even though it has nothing to do with anything like that. So they run into all these types of problems. We see that with CERN even. When things aren't reported properly on CERN, all of a sudden the world is scared to death that a black hole is going to form. There have been people that have killed themselves over fear of something happening at CERN.
Wow.
The actual documented cases of people killing themselves because physicists don't explain it right to the media, then the media sensationalizes everything. So a lot of the drive behind this book is to sort out the truth from the lies, give people a proper perspective on reality, and also show how you can have different views of different things, and it can still be cohesive. It can still make sense, and there's other ways to look at the world around us. So it's really exciting stuff. Science should be fun.
Of the authors, as you guys being the authors there, and those authors are in your bio section on the edge of the website there, did you see anything that all four of you guys showed an intersecting point, like you came to the same conclusion on a specific topic or subject? Did you see anything intersecting, or somebody say like Doug Woodward said, here's what my research, this is what I found today, and you go, yeah, I found that too. Did you see any of that? Did any of that happen?
With some general things, yeah. I mean, the main cohesive glue of the whole book is that, however this puzzle of reality is put together, God's the one behind it. God's the one that did it, and the Bible can give us information on it. But what's interesting is when you get four authors together, and really, I mean, even just in normal Christian conversation, you're going to have different people that interpret Bible verses in different ways. To me, that's exciting, though. I don't look at it as like a conflict or anything like that. I'm excited about that. And the biggest example is between me and Anthony. And again, Anthony's awesome. He's a really good friend of mine and absolutely brilliant. But he's more on the electric universe side, which is great. I'm more on like the gravitational Einstein side of things. So you get two different perspectives. But the cool thing about it is whichever way is actually how God did it, they both still point to God. They both can still be backed up by Scripture. So that's kind of the cohesive glue for the whole book. But there's no real like conflicting information in there. There's different perspectives and different opinions, but the actual information on how we should look at science and look at the Bible, what our relationship with God should be like, how we should be doing due diligence in research and not just going after every theory that's out there. All of that we all 100% agree on, and I think that's what makes the book really, really strong.
Mm-hmm. Can you specify any major fact of surprise that people would be surprised to hear? Any factoid that you can remember that's like, oh wow, that's because we talk about revising reality, then you would expect something in our normal reality would be a fraud. Or
right.
Something wrong with it. Did you have anything like that? You can think of anything?
Oh, sure, yeah. Actually, Anthony Patch did a lot of writing on CERN, and it seems that CERN is central to some type of horrible deception upon the world. And Anthony's done a lot of really diligent research in that field in CERN. And I in other work, I've talked about CERN in other works, not as much in this one, but a little bit, because I also wrote about our quantum future, how quantum technologies are going to play a role in the very near future, and actually kind of already are. So I talk about things like quantum computing, with which Anthony Patch has also talked about, and we agree in those regards as well. I also talk about this idea of, and this is why quantum field theory is so important, because if reality is just interactions in these quantum fields, that might explain what consciousness is. And that's something that physicists have been interested in for a long time. How do you define consciousness just from a strictly physical, like a scientific view? And so far, there's a couple ideas, but there's not really anything concrete. But one of the leading theories is this idea that consciousness might just be an interaction in a quantum field. And you could compare that to mass. Our mass, the mass of a particle, what mass is, it's an interaction with the Higgs field. That's what mass actually is. So it's kind of that same idea. Maybe consciousness is an interaction with a field. So they call the field, it's a hypothetical field, but they call it the cortical field. And because every field has a particle associated with it, there should be, if this is true, there should be a particle called corticons. Now, if that's true, facilities like CERN, like the LHC at CERN, the Large Hadron Collider, they would be able to, in a sense, produce corticons, and probably already have, just without realizing it. They would be able to essentially and cheaply produce artificial intelligence, and it wouldn't even really be artificial because it would be more real than that. So, taking that a step further, what could that mean for the future? Let's say one of the world's governments got a hold of that. If they were able to create corticons in somebody else's mind, would that just create a personality that would take over that mind, and now they have drone super soldiers or something, so it gets into these strange areas of what our future might look like if these things that they're researching now, and this is no secret, this is even on the CERN website, they're researching these things now, what our future might look like. So I wrote quite a bit about that, and in my research there was a lot of really surprising things, artificial intelligence just being one of them.
Do you think that a certain political candidate woman may have had corticons injected into them and created a diabolical, pathological liar out of them?
Yeah, there's got to be some explanation there, and I think that's as good as any other.
Now, I think I've come up with the only one that can stretch something so far as a corticon into the political conversation. All right, here's a question from the live chat. Josh Peck says, "Is the Earth a pyramid?"
No.
Is it flat?
No.
Is it a box? Is it a square? Like
Nope.
a cube? Okay. Is it like a saucer?
Nah.
Is it like an octagon?
Oxagon. No.
Is it like a cubicon? Rubicon? Is it
a neocon?
Neocon? Is it a con? I mean, it could be a con if it doesn't really exist.
Right.
Okay, I think you're kind of forcing me down to the last. Is it a sphere? Is it circular or what?
That's what I believe. I believe it's like a spheroid shape, and basically what modern.
I mean, if we're revising reality, wouldn't we want to revise what the Earth looks like?
I think the general view of what it looks like is fine, and I'm not discounting because I don't want to get a bunch of people mad or think that I'm making fun of them. I don't discount. Okay, I've never been to space. I've never looked down on the Earth and saw what it looks like. Okay. In the wildest of realities, maybe it's flat. I don't believe it is. I believe it's a sphere, but I can't be so arrogant that I can't at least admit there's a possibility that I could die, go to heaven, and God could tell me, "Hey, Josh, you were wrong about the whole shape of the Earth thing. Just so you know, that might happen." I don't know. But in my belief and in my research on it, I believe it's a sphere. I have no problem with that. If it turns out to be flat, it really doesn't affect much of my research anyway. So it's kind of a non-issue for me.
Well, I'm wondering if the vibrations would be different on a flat Earth than they would in a spherical.
Be the same vibrations, they would just be arranged differently.
So when you talk about, say, maybe hell, would hell be a contaminated vibration, something with rogue particles in it?
Yeah, that actually gets into M theory and extra dimensions and things like that. The more that I've been researching this, the more that I believe that hell is actually and another dimension. And when I say that, most people probably have this idea that I once had about dimensions, that it's just somewhere out there past the boundaries of the universe. But really what a dimension is it's just two extra directions. We live in three spatial dimensions, or three dimensions of space. So we have the x-axis, left and right. That's the first one. Then we have the y, which is up and down, and then z, which is forward and backward. Or if it's on the table, the y and z would be flipped. But we live in three spatial dimensions. What I believe is going on, I think modern M theory says that there are 11 space-time dimensions. And physicists are kind of looking at time as more of a property of a dimension instead of a dimension all its own. It technically is a dimension, but it's not a spatial dimension. It's what's called a temporal dimension, or a dimension of time. That's what time is, but it's also a property of space. And the way to illustrate that is, time exists the same in the first dimension as it does in the second and the third. If you're only considering one spatial dimension, time still runs the same. So it's more of like a property. So what they've been saying lately, physicists will say that we live in either 3+1 dimensions. They'll say that, or they'll say three space-time dimensions. So the way that I look at it, superstring theory or M theory says that there are 11 of these space-time dimensions. And I actually think that there's a foundational 0th dimension. And basically the idea behind that is, if the first dimension is a line, which a line is made up of a series of points, then the 0th dimension would be just 1 point, no direction, it's just 1 point. I think that might be what hell is. I think it's something that's so far removed from any kind of real, tangible, physical space, and same with time, that I believe that might be what hell actually is, or lake of fire, or the abyss, or whatever people want to call it. And as far as the higher dimensions, I think that heaven probably consists of dimensions 4 through 11. Or maybe for the 4th spatial dimension might not even be included in that, because what I talk about too is that there's we know at some point, because the book of Revelation says that at some point Satan and the fallen angels are going to fall to earth. They're going to be physical manifestations. They're going to be confined to 3 dimensions of space. But we also know that they already fell at some point. There already was a type of falling from heaven, and we get that from the book of Jude and various other places. So where does that leave them now? And I think that the answer is that they're in the 4th spatial dimension. It's the next dimension above our own, and I think that's the next dimension below what real heaven, consists of. So I talk about ideas like that in the book, and that's how the fallen angels, because they're still physical, they're actually more physical than we are, because they have an extra dimension to them. But that's how they were able to, come to Earth and cohabitate with women, and that's why their offspring were these big giants. Because you have something that has an extra dimension to it, and so a lot more mass, and you have something that's 3-dimensional, and they come together. Well, all of that extra mass that are in the genetics of this angel now have to be forced into a 3-dimensional environment. Where else is it going to go? I think that's why these giants were so big. I think that explains, because when we read about angels in the Bible, they look like people. They're not especially large or anything like that. They just look like people, unless they're viewed actually in heaven or in a vision or something. Then they're kind of weird looking with a bunch of eyes and wings and animal heads and stuff like that. But the main manifestation of angels is that they just look like normal people. So I wondered what in that would make the offspring of an angel and a human be a giant, like genetically. Why is that the outcome? And I think that's why. I think the whole extra dimension thing explains that.
Jade, our moderator wants to know, how do you spell the cordon?
Cordicon. It's a C-O-R. It's C-O-R-T-I-C-O-N. Cordicon.
Now, where did that term come from?
It's just a hypothetical term that whoever put together the theory, I think it's called, if I remember right, it's called semi-theory, C-E-M-I theory. I forget the physicist's name that developed it, but it was just the hypothetical term that he gave to the particle, and then the cortical field, which is C-O-R-T-I-C-A-L, the field. I think, you just got to call it something, so he called it that.
It sounds like something you put on a cut. Another question for you. Do you think heaven has advanced technology?
Yes. Yes, I do. I believe that a lot of and actually that's talked about quite a bit in the book of Ezekiel, and not in the way that ancient astronaut theorists postulate. The book of Ezekiel, the very first chapter, talks about this amazing vision that Ezekiel had of the throne of God and this construct, this chariot of God, but it's made of angels and this firmament thing, this domed thing that the throne of God sat upon.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also these wheels, wheel within a wheel. Now, some ancient astronaut theorists will take that and try to make it say that it's like a flying saucer or something, or something mechanical, and there's just way too much in the text that it's not that. But what I do believe it is it's we could think of it as a super advanced piece of technology, but also like part biological as well, like a biomechanical thing. And that's not an exact description, because we're looking at it again from 3 dimensions in an extremely limited view of what technology can really be. But part of this thing is made up of these angels, and when Ezekiel sees these angels, he notices that parts of their bodies are melded together in strange ways. It says like all of their legs come together into one hoof, and their wings are melded together. It's in English it says that they're joined together, but when you look at the Hebrew, it doesn't mean that they were just tied together or that they were touching or something. In the Hebrew, it actually means like they were melded together, and they have like different faces and things. So what's actually going on there, it's a term that physicists use called extra-dimensional unfolding. And the idea is if you have a higher dimensional object that you want to translate into 3 dimensions or into lower dimensions, you could unfold it. And a good example of this is think of a 2-dimensional universe called Flatland, and it doesn't have to be very big. It could be the size of your tabletop, and the inhabitants of Flatland are called Flatlanders, and these are 2-dimensional beings. They don't have up or down. They have no access to it. So if I wanted to show Flatlander a cube, I could put a cube on Flatland, but all they're going to see is a square. So there's a lot to that cube they can't see because they have no up or down. So what I could do is unfold the cube because a cube is just 6 squares. I could unfold it and lay it flat on Flatland, which basically has the shape of a cross. And even though they're never going to be able to put together in their mind the actual construct of this thing, they still have access to the most information possible, because now they can kind of go around it and they can look at it. So the idea is if there was a 4-dimensional cube called a hypercube that we can't imagine, we can't picture in our minds because our perception is limited, what are we to do? Well, it could be unfolded into our dimensions, which would actually, it's called a tesseract. It would look like a cross, but with 2 extra arms. Instead of, being made of 6 squares, it would be made of 8 cubes. So that would be like an extra dimensional unfolding. But what if I wanted to show a Flatlander a tesseract? I could unfold the tesseract again, but eventually you're going to come to the point where some of these squares are taking the same space as other squares. So eventually you're going to have this kind of melding effect going on. Now, there's no way that anyone's going to convince me that 2,600 years ago, some prophet in Israel knew enough about modern quantum physics to make up this story about this extra-dimensional unfolding thing. It's just ridiculous. He didn't make it up. He wrote exactly what he saw. He didn't fully understand what he was seeing, obviously. He just knew it was a big heavenly thing. And he wrote it in this in amazing detail. So now we can look at that today and read it and realize, wow, he actually saw extra-dimensional unfolding, something that physicists have only even been thinking about maybe the past 50 to 100 years. So that's like one example of many, but I forget the original question. Oh, technology in heaven. So yeah, there appears they appear to be able to have an understanding of quantum physics way more than we do because, they can actually utilize it. And, of course, we should expect that because, they have direct access to the throne room of God. So, of course, they're going to know a lot more than we do. And it does come through at certain points throughout the Bible like that.
So is there any direct reference to vibrations in the Bible?
There are a couple that might be, and that's kind of the tricky thing with certain Bible verses. They can be interpreted in different ways, but it does talk about the voice of God and things that He created that are visible being made of something invisible. It alludes and hints to it, but it doesn't just come out and say, God created stuff by vibrating quantum fields, and if you know that, then you know how reality is. And it doesn't come out and say it like that. But so of course there's always the chance that it could be interpreted in different ways.
Well, Josh, where it says the things that are made with the things that are seen are made by things that are not seen. Is that a singular reference, or is it indicate a sort of designing group?
Well, it says things, so plural. I think it's everything physical. Everything physical that is visible, that can be seen, is created from something or that's not visible. And actually, you know what? I want to, because I think I understand what you're asking. If the invisible things is plural or not. Let me look that up real quick and find out while we're talking. It'll just take me a second.
Not a problem.
Hebrews 11:3, I believe it is.
Okay, that's quick.
So, yeah, we'll look that up. By faith we understand. Okay, let me get go to Bible Gateway here.
Right. In there.
Through faith we understand that the worlds were or the universe were framed by the word of God, so that things which are seen were not made of things which do appear. The way that it words it, things which we can see now were not made from things which we can see. So physical doesn't beget physical. So it actually doesn't say specifically, it doesn't give a specific either singularity or plurality to the invisible things. It just says that though the physical things that we can see it wasn't created by something else physical. So if somebody's going to believe in the Bible, then that kind of throws evolution and stuff like that out the window. But yeah, that's a really interesting question.
Well, when it says that you shall be as gods and do the and then Jesus said you do greater works, does there seem to be that? When you talk about revising reality, perhaps when the reality is revised, is that when we'll enter into that realm where we will have that same creative power?
Yeah, we're not gonna. When Jesus returns and we can be seen as we see him, when Jesus finally returns, everything's set into place, everything's restored how it should be, then I think we're finally going to be able to understand what reality is, how to, and that's really the takeaway from this is the ultimate revision of reality is going to come when Jesus returns and when we can ask God face to face. So the idea of revising reality is a continuing process as as individuals and children of God or believers or non-believers, as we progress through life, we're learning more, we're picking up more things, we're either forming new opinions or we are strengthening our pre-established ones. So we're in this constant process of revising reality, and I think that was part of why Doug Woodward, in a genius move, decided to make 2 volumes of this book.
Well, it says we see through a glass darkly. Is that because when we see it clearly, is that when we see the total reality? So are you guys trying to expedite what the reality is, because right now we just see through a glass darkly?
Yeah, for right now, that's the best that we can hope for, is that while we're in this physical life, we do see through a glass darkly, meaning that everything we see is just kind of a shadow of what's real. So we can't, envision anything extra dimensional, even though everything spiritual is there and made of that stuff.
Do evangelists and say maybe where Daniel saw, he said, when he was in the fire, he said, I saw somebody else in the fire. When he saw that, was that him seeing through the glass clearly?
What I think that was, and other visions like that, same with Ezekiel, what I think that was is something from there going into our darkly realm, in a form that we can perceive and understand. It would be kind of like with the Flatland example. If I wanted to show myself to a Flatlander, well, Flatlanders have two-dimensional perspective. There's no way that he can see all of me, so I could put my finger in Flatland. He could interact with that. He could see a circle, like a two-dimensional slice of what I really am. I could speak to him, and the sound waves could go through his dimension. Mm-hmm. I could even take a Flatlander out of his dimension and into mine, but he still only has a two-dimensional perspective. So as he's moving through, three-dimensional space, he's still seeing everything as lines, but to him it'll be lines changing color, changing shape. But he would still be able to see a little bit more than he would from his own reality, which I think is what John, in the book of Revelation, what he went through in that vision. He was taken up to heaven, but in all of his descriptions, he's still seeing things through a three-dimensional perspective, because he's still a three-dimensional being. So everything still looks solid and three-dimensional to him, but there are weird things going on, that you would expect if it is something extra-dimensional. So that's kind of how I look at it when these prophets and amazing men and women of God, when they've have these visions of angels or pre-incarnate Jesus or anything like that. When those things appear to them, they still appear in a form that they can understand, which would be three-dimensional. It's just like if I were to breach Flatland, I would be showing myself in a two-dimensional perspective that they could understand, but it would still be odd and strange and miraculous to a Flatlander.
Well, I hate to break this conversation, but Chuck in Florida wants to go back to the first hour. He wants to know, can you roll Kratom in a cigarette and smoke it like a cigarette?
No, if you try to do that, you'll waste the Kratom. You won't get anything out of it. It won't do anything for you. People have tried, and it does nothing. Like it just doesn't work that way. It's got to actually be ingested. And there's different ways. Like you can make tea out of it, or what I do, because I get like powdered leaves. I just mix it in some yogurt and just eat it.
Okay, so a bong wouldn't help you either?
Nope. Nope. It'd be a total waste.
I seem to have some sort of knowledge in these matters. I don't know why. Perhaps I'm seeing in another dimension. Maybe in another dimension I do know. All right. So again, I mean, as I started out, I feel like there's something always going on around us. Now, you talk about the electric universe and things that are seen, things that are not seen. It seems there's a report of things called like shadow people, and I'm wondering if those are the things that are not seen. Those things are in the peripheral. They're out there. Are they crossing into the world where we see darkly, but through a glass darkly? But is that the clarification of one of the things out there? Now, there's this drug down in South America that they take, and I'm sure everybody knows what that is. But when you take it, you see giant spiders, and I'm wondering, is that clearing out what's really out there, or is that just a manifestation, a holographic projection from some dark place making you think you see that?
I believe that stuff actually exists, and I think that's why. And that's actually a good point that goes back to the first hour when we talked about what pharmakeia really is, what sorcery really is. Mm-hmm. So when somebody takes a drug like that to try to see into the spirit world or to have hallucinations, I believe those hallucinations are real. I think that they are actually seeing things that exist, just in a realm that we're forbidden by the Bible to have any interaction with, because it's only going to damage us throughout that process. And again, I used to, for me, it was astral travel when I was into New Age stuff. I would astral project, and that was like my sorcery. And it about ruined my life. It invited all sorts of just evil entities into our home that were terrorizing us day and night. It was really bad. So obviously I don't recommend any of that stuff, but yeah, I do believe that those realities exist. And when people do things like that, and actually shadow peoples, that's a good That's a good example of this, because sometimes people are attacked by shadow people without even doing anything to try to elicit it. And I mean, I had sleep paralysis when I was a kid, and I was always attacked by shadow people. This was before the term shadow people was a thing, so I didn't know what to call them. I just called them demons, and I still believe that's an accurate description. But shadow people is fine too. But I in my current studies, I think what those are, I think that they're the spirits of the dead giants from the book of Genesis, the dead Nephilim, because the Nephilim were the offspring of angels and humans. They were something that was never intended to be created. The enemy takes things of God and twists them and makes them all messed up to create some evil thing. So God created angels, God created man. He didn't intend or want them to cohabit, but he also gave them free will. So they did it, and they made that mistake. And so now, after that, now the world was full of these Nephilim things, these weird giants. Well, when they die, what happens to their spirit? They're certainly not going to heaven. They were completely against God in every form of the word. But we also read in Scripture that hell was created for the devil and his angels. So they don't really go there, upon death either. Now there is a coming judgment where they'll be sent to the lake of fire, but so where does that leave them? And I believe that what the book of Enoch says, that it left them basically wandering spirits on the earth, demons, what we would call evil spirits or demons. So I do believe there's a difference between demons and fallen angels, and I think a lot of when people report shadow people, I think those are demons. And I certainly saw them. They are horrifying. They're evil to the core. That's as far as I know, that's about the scariest thing a person can go through is a shadow person attack. It's terrible, but if there are people out there suffering from this, there is hope. You can use the name of Jesus to cast them out. And actually, this is a tip I got from Chris White, who wrote Sleep Paralysis, What It Is and How to Stop It. You can actually follow Jesus' example and use the name of Jesus to banish these things to the abyss. That's the one thing that they are afraid of, and it even says that in Scripture when the demons inhabited that Legion, the whole story of Legion. Jesus said, "What is your name?" And they said, "Legion, for we are many." That whole thing. Well, they were scared because they thought Jesus had come to punish them before the appointed time. Right. Before the time of the judgment. They were scared of the abyss. So we can actually use that to our advantage. We can use the name of Jesus, and when we're going through an attack, and usually you can't speak, so you'll have to kind of, run it through your mind a few times until it loosens up enough where you can physically, audibly speak. You banish these things to the abyss. In the name of Jesus, I command you to the abyss. And for me personally, once I did that, I didn't have any problems after that. I didn't have any sleep paralysis. It stopped it completely. Wow. I've only had one or two instances, just because we live in a fallen world and, these things are going to come and go sometimes, but it wasn't severe. It wasn't anything really that bad. It was just a case of, there was a little sleep paralysis. There was something, in the house, and I just, in the name of Jesus, I command you to leave, and it was gone. It was a really easy spiritual battle. So if people are suffering from sleep paralysis and shadow people attacks, those are some things that they can do.
You believe it or not, Josh, you're actually corroborating what somebody called in last week and said they got rid of shadow people by using the name of Jesus. So,
wow.
So that's very interesting that you say that. But we are getting near the end of the broadcast. Anything you'd like to say about your website? I want you to go right ahead.
Sure. If people want to check me out or get this book, Revising Reality, you can go to sharpeningreport.com, and I have a link there that people can order it. Of course, I highly suggest you do so. You won't be disappointed. And sharpeningreport.com is basically the central hub of everything that I do. So right now I'm working on a video book. It's kind of like an audio book, but it's video. A video book on one of my earlier books, Quantum Creation, which actually the foreword was written by Doug Woodward in that book. So people can find that at my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Josh Peck Disclosure. And if people want to contact me, they can do so at joshpeckdisclosure@gmail.com, and I'll be happy to read their email.
Okay, and one final thing, Josh, in a surprise attack on you, I see that behind you there is a guitar. Would you like to sing a song?
No, I'm good.
No, I'll sing a song with you.
Well, it's a Les Paul electric guitar, and I'd have to plug in the amp, and that will probably wake Adam up, and then I'll have a very angry baby and a very angry mother on my hands. But if people want to check it out, it's I don't know if you can see that, but
yeah, I can see that plainly.
That's my Les Paul. It's pretty nice. I like it a lot.
Are you a rocker? What do you play on that?
Yeah, I'm in love with rock music. That's totally my that's.
Well, what if somebody says you're going to go to hell for listening to rock music?
Well,
ain't you going to go to hell?
I want to be so non-Christian and have a retort to that, but I probably shouldn't. I'll say I think that if it's edifying to God, I don't think he has any problem with any particular style of music. It kind of goes back to the original argument of what somebody does with something. Of course, somebody can take rock music and make it really evil and really blasphemous and stuff. I don't like that stuff. But you can also take the same rock music and make some pretty cool, amazing Christian music with it. So that's kind of how I look at it.
Well, I was shocked one time. I was listening to the radio, and it was a Southern gospel station, and they said that God loves Southern gospel. And I was thinking, man, you're just saying that because you're playing that,
Exactly.
Whatever that somebody likes, their personal taste, they say that's what God really likes, or that's what God uses and such, But what's some of your favorite rock songs? I'm trying to go where no man has gone before with this interview.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Like, no, I've done a ton of interviews. I don't think anyone's ever really asked me that.
Let's just shoot the breeze let's get real for a while. Now, what kind of rock music you like?
Well, I actually really like Chevelle. That's one of my favorite bands. I like grunge music from the 90s, so I like Pearl Jam and stuff like that. Lately, I've been listening to this band called, which is kind of ironic, Tesseract.
Wow.
Actually, it was my brother that introduced me to this band. I didn't find it in my research or anything. The whole quantum physics connection is just a big coincidence, but they have some really, really interesting music that's done in these different timings that I've never heard before, and I really like their music a lot. It's something completely different that I'd never really heard before. It's unique, and in rock music, it's really hard to find good, unique music. I should also plug my good friend Joe Horn and Broken for Good. His band just put out a CD. Okay. People go to skywatchtvstore.com. They can check that out. That's more like blues rock, but it's really good. He spent a lot of time on this. The whole band did. It's phenomenal work. And it's got nothing but really good reviews, so people should check that out. But actually, Red Hot Chili Peppers just put out a new album, and I like that. That one came out pretty good.
Well, isn't rock music from the pit of hell?
I
mean,
no.
Okay.
Some of it is, but I stay away from that.
Okay.
stuff.
Okay. Somebody's not letting you off so easy. They say, hey, you can pick quietly about the audio of your voice without waking up the family over there.
Yeah, I could.
Josh. Come on now.
Okay, I'll tell you what. If people want music by me and they want to hear me attempt to sing, they can go to youtube.com/Josh Peck Disclosure. I have 3 songs on there.
Wow.
So go for it. I'm telling you, people, though, the people are going to be underimpressed.
Okay. Well, under say and over present, I think is
over deliver. Yeah, that's the hope.
Well, Josh, we're going to have you back in a few weeks. Looks like we got you scheduled for October the 8th, where you're going to bring your lovely wife, Christina, and your beautiful son, Adam, onto the program, at least for a second anyway. But it's going to be split up. But anyway, we'll see you in a couple of weeks. We're going to be talking to Doug Wood. We're going to get his take on revising reality, too, as well. So I appreciate you coming on the broadcast, Josh, and we're going to let you go. And I thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me back on. I'm really excited about October. That'll be a lot of fun and looking forward to it. Have a great night.
Okay, you too.
Thanks.
All right, bye-bye. All right, everybody, that was Josh Peck here on the Edge television broadcast. This program will begin to replay in the main player here just shortly after we log off. Next week, as I said, Doug Woodward's going to be on the program. It's going to be another great show. We're going to continue our discussion in revising reality. We live in some kind of weird old world where the reality just doesn't seem like it's... here, let me move myself over here. Here I go. I put myself in the center. Wait a minute, I got something in the picture here. Where's it at? There it is. I got it out. So anyway, we're going to continue our discussion about revising reality. If we haven't had a guest on the program you'd like to see, drop me a line at edgam@yahoo.com. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter. It's a lot of fun to have Twitter, especially when you get those notifications and you see one from me. You got to know. You got to have an edgegasm. Look, I will supply you with free edgegasms. And, when you get done here and you just light cigarettes, I guess the best thing you can do. And, then follow me on my YouTube channel and you can hear the programs replaying on our TuneIn radio program there too as well. Of course, we podcast it too. We do the whole social media thing. Did I fail to mention Facebook? Facebook is where I put a lot of my memes in there. And, if you enjoy sarcasm, that's pretty much what I do. And I do it damn well too. Well, that's the end of the broadcast. Thank you everyone for your great questions and paying attention to the show. Tell your friends next week to log on to the program, see that crazy cosmic cowboy. Daniel Ott for the Edge. Bye-bye.